Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat datang kembali di Netizen Indo. Setelah sekian purnama kita tak bertemu, disinilah saatnya kita akan bersilaturahmi lagi. Apa kata mereka tentang Timnas Indonesia? Yo, tua
AFC.
gas.
AFC. Our second home.
Our second home, man.
Our second home, man. And it's
Good to be back.
good to be back
Yeah.
because the news that I bring you folks is that not one but two teams have officially qualified from the AFC region. Let me congratulate them. Japan has qualified. Japan is through to the World
That's
Cup.
Japan, baby.
So happy. I think they'll be a great watch at the World Cup. And secondly, today, Iran qualified automatically after drawing against Uzbekistan. Iran is through.
Iran is
through. Congratulations. Big moment. Iran is back at the World Cup. These are two teams that I think have become a routine expectation of what to see from Asia at the World Cup. So congratulations to both of them. But we did have 2 rounds of football happen in Asia. Big, major rounds, as now all these teams sit at 8 games played out of 10. What were the biggest takeaways, my friend?
I mean, let's start with Japan's group. And Japan specifically, 24 goals scored, 2 goals conceded. That's it. A 22-plus goal differential, total domination. And they booked themselves a spot to the World Cup. Here's what's interesting about Japan, though. We said at the beginning of this World Cup campaign that they weren't really going to be tested. Saudi Arabia have completely dipped in form. So have Australia, by the way. You look at the other teams in their group, and they are teams that have never proved themselves at this stage. Bahrain, China, and Indonesia. And so it was almost set for Japan to dominate. We saw the performance a year ago at the AFC Asian Cup, and it was very underwhelming. And I'll be honest, man, even in this group, I've been a little underwhelmed at times with Japan. In the sense that when they do face the tight teams in Australia and Saudi Arabia, they don't really dominate them. It's actually really tight. And if anything, there's been a couple of draws that go Japan's way against these tighter opponents. And my worry is, in 2022, we saw Japan really light up the stage.
Yeah.
Showcase themselves against Spain, against Germany, and even have a really good knockout stage appearance. They fail miserably at the AFC Asian Cup. And with these tight results against Saudi Arabia and Australia, I'm now worried that when Japan do play against a very good team at the World Cup, they're not going to have what it takes to actually overcome that challenge. And so I just think that this qualification numbers are a little bit misleading when it comes to Japan's actual form. They're a very good side. They're the best in Asia. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is I just think Japan aren't any better than they were 3 years ago.
Yeah, here's how I interpret the information. They're getting cocky. I think they're getting cocky. Today, going into the Australian match, they were already qualified through to the World Cup, and we saw half the team get subbed off at halftime, man. Like, they're getting very cocky. I think they've ran themselves this entire tournament as very clearly, knowingly, the best team in Asia, knowing that they're going to get by. From one perspective, I understand that cockiness, the comfort that they have in this region, because they ultimately do have that. But I mean, Argentina was qualified going into the Argentina-Brazil game, and they showed out.
Right.
So I understand your criticism.
That's my point.
You have to take advantage of these games, bro. You have to take advantage of competitive matches, no matter who it's against, and go all out. I mean, we jokingly brought up at the beginning of their campaign, do they score over or under 35 goals? It was because they started off with that fire, with that want, that motivation. They're not going to get there in 2 games. They're 11 goals behind now from that mark. And it does worry me because I want good things for this Japanese team. But I do feel that same sentiment, that same anxiety is there because I don't think they're approaching these games the right way with the right mentality that the big major teams in world football do. And that worries me. So all I can say is that, or all I can hope for is that, you know, that cockiness shows itself at the World Cup. And they show us why they were so confident in the group stages of the World Cup qualifiers, why they were so confident they would be able to overcome these big teams. They show us that on the biggest stage. Otherwise, I'm going to look back at this as a sign of what was to come, which was ultimately disappointment if they don't show out at the World Cup. Staying in the same group, I mean, I'll just talk about Australia real quick. Since Popovich came in, they're undefeated.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest note. It's why I look for coaching changes with the USA, man. Because the quickest way to change is through the coach. And we've seen it work beautifully for Australia. And not only have they been undefeated, I do think they've actually been getting better every single game. I just think the players like Popovich's approach to the game. It's a little bit quicker, not as conservative as it was under the previous coach. There's still a very physical side, but I just see a little bit more flow with this Australian side. And I think with that just comes a bit more confidence with themselves. So I think Australia have really found that rhythm under Popovich. And I think now comfortably, I do see Australia qualifying automatically in that second place spot.
I have confidence in them now. That I think from the Australian perspective, that was a worry with like the first 3 games. They're playing weird football, man.
Yeah.
Weird. Popovich comes in, and I think what I've seen from him so far is a more confident approach of playing football with this Australian team, and it's showing in the results. So I think they're going to qualify automatically, despite only being 3 points above Saudi Arabia. I think Saudi Arabia has been very disappointing this entire run. Australia is going through automatically. Let's talk Indonesia.
Please, man.
Let's talk Indonesia, man. Because they've been a wild ride of emotions ever since we started covering them. Starting off the international window with a loss to Australia, man.
A big one.
A big one.
A big loss, bro. 5-1. 5-1. And immediately, I was thinking coaching change. Because Shin Tae-young did not deserve to be let go.
Right.
But I said, you know what? It's Australia, who are in great form. Let me see one more game. Let me see one more game under Kluivert at home in Indonesia, hosting a team that you should be able to beat in Bahrain. Let me see that game. And our questions were answered because they dominated Bahrain.
They could have won 2-0, 3-0. Marcelino knew how to square the ball, bro.
I know.
Oh, my God.
I know, man.
If he just squares that ball over, they win this game 2-0, 3-0. Easily, bro, because this was a big game going in. If you're looking at the table, they were tied on points. Bahrain had defeated Indonesia at home after a controversial ending, so Indonesia needed to get those 3 points back. And yeah, I agree. From what I saw today, it was very impressive from Indonesia, ultimately dominating this Bahrain side and showcasing that they were the better team with some great offensive opportunities. And what was the name of the striker, man? Because it wasn't Stroik. It was
bootleg Martin Odegaard. Terhar Ramani, man. Yeah,
good goal.
Great goal.
Yeah.
Great finish. And he was actually fantastic this entire window for Indonesia. He has really come in for a strike. I think he's the better player. He's been a great addition to this side because now you have Ramani up top, Ferdinand in kind of like a drift secondary position, and then Orat Mangguin as an out-and-out winger. The front 3 of Indonesia, I think, is complete now.
Good, and that's big because we mentioned that their defense is good enough for teams of Bahrain's level.
Yes,
it's good enough. And Justin Hubner, Idzes, Ramadani, they all did great today. Shout out Martin Paez, FC Dallas' very own.
Yes, sir.
But the offense, we've been trying to figure that out. It's been exciting at times, but it hasn't been truly consistent. I still wish they could have finished those opportunities, man, because this game could have been put away.
Yeah.
And they just kept it tight. They kept it tight. But regardless, man, it's 3 major points here. Does it solidify for them progress into the next round in that 4th or 3rd place spot?
Their next match is against China. That's the final. That's a World Cup final for Indonesia. It's in Indonesia as well. If they win that game, I say it's secured 100%. The last game will not matter, no matter what. Even if they draw that game, I actually think they'll have a very good chance to go through. But if China steal this from Indonesia,
they beat them already, man.
It's over. That's the thing. And what's crazy is that China will have big incentive because China have the easiest schedule remaining. If China beat Indonesia, then they play Bahrain to finish.
Right.
And China can beat Bahrain.
They win both games, they're through.
They're through. And Indonesia will be out. So I see Saudi Arabia, for as bad as they've been, I see them finishing in the playoff position. So Indonesia are in a final against China. But, dude, it's crazy that China actually have just as good a chance as Indonesia because Indonesia is losing against Japan in that last match.
That's the problem.
So they're maxed out with the 3 points that they can gain from China. That's it. They're not going to beat Japan. So Indonesia have to beat China. If they do that, though, they're through. They're through the next round.
Is that a big indication of, you know, would it have a big impact on what you think of Kluivert if he beats China here?
Yeah, I think it would have a huge impact. This is a must-win situation for Indonesia. I mean, I don't even think they've ever had a situation like this in their entirety of their nation's existence. The players are going to go through what no other Indonesian player has ever gone through before. This is why
you bring me nervous, bro. You're making me nervous.
This is why you bring in Kluivert, because supposedly he has the experience, right? Which he does.
No.
Does he have it at a coaching level? We're going to see in that match against China.
Indonesians, I already know you guys are watching the video, and I want to know y'all's thoughts. How do you feel about the Indonesian squad? The next 2 games remaining, this is the highest stakes that have ever existed for an Indonesian national team. They have the chance of going to the World Cup, or at least progressing to the next round in Asia. It's there. This is all you could have wanted. Close it out against China, man. Close it out.
Imagine if China just... Imagine they've been bottom of the table the entire time, and then they just finish the group with 2 wins, and they go through to the next round.
That'd be peak AFC. That would be peak AFC right there.
It really would. It really.
They got good fans,
bro.
man. They got good fans.
Great fans.
Group B. Let's move on up. Group B. Major takeaways, because it does look, although they haven't qualified automatically yet, it does look like South Korea will top the group. But we did have some action regarding that 2nd and 3rd place spot, with Jordan overtaking Iraq after Iraq lost today to Palestine, who won their first game. Congratulations to them. Scenes for Palestine as they defeat
Big for Palestine.
as they defeat Iraq 2-1 in the final minutes, and Iraq loses a bad game here that could cost them automatic qualification.
Yeah, and it really costly for Iraq. Jordan, on the other hand, having a great window, beating Palestine and then tying South Korea. So that's the biggest point I want to make here is I think Jordan are in the driver's seat now. Yeah. They're in the driver's seat to take automatic qualification. They play Iraq, not in the next game, but in the last game. Now, here's the thing, though. Iraq have to play South Korea. There's no way Iraq's beating Korea.
Not this version of Iraq right now.
Not this version. So I really do think that last game won't matter. Jordan's through. They just got to win their next game against Oman. Tough, but doable. Jordan win that next game. Iraq lose their next game against Korea. Done. Jordan through with Korea.
I think I'm cool with it, though, because when you look at the performances, I watch these Iraq games always wanting more, man.
Yeah.
I always want more from what I saw. The magic I saw at the Asian Cup, I'm just like, do that again. Showcase that same magic again. They've done enough in 3 matches to get the result, to get the victory. But then 3 draws, man, and then 2 losses today, specifically against Palestine, who I do think is just such a clearly weaker team. They need to handle these type of teams. They couldn't do it. I worry, man. I worry about this Iraq team and what version we would see if they were to automatically qualify at the World Cup. Whereas Jordan, I think, is on just really good pace, really good momentum right now, good form. I love what I'm seeing from them, regardless of the coaching change that happened earlier in the season. Jordan, I think, is deserving of the automatic qualification spot now after 8 games played alongside South Korea. Iraq, I need to see more, and hopefully in these last 2 games they can pick it up.
Hey, Iraq are like Colombia in the sense that they may have peaked at the international tournament, the AFC Asian Cup, because since then it has been a steady but slow decline for Iraq, man. They're still a good team, but you want more. You want more, and you look at their goal differential. 8 goals scored, not a lot, but maybe clinical, but 7 goals conceded. Their whole point was supposed to be that they're very good defensively, and then they hit you out with their striker. But it's not working anymore. So I think the table is very reflective of what the reality is. Jordan's offense overall is better than what Iraq have to give. Now, obviously, it's not over, because Oman can be tricky, and Jordan cannot get complacent. If they get complacent, then they're going to see themselves in a final against Iraq on that last match day.
Yeah, I see Oman scheduled to face off against Jordan. They get a result there. They then face off against Palestine.
Yeah.